Good evening, it's Gene Inger, and this is the Tuesday final. There is so much, and I put a lot of effort into the daily briefing. I tried to be as precise as I can be to the extent the information out there is. In any event, for example, you have the Delta of Delta perhaps suggesting that peak COVID is here in some states, like Florida. That doesn't mean it won't wind down and bubble up once we get a couple weeks of school under the belt. And you've got now 7% of Greater Tampa, which is Hillsborough County's students of all the public schools with COVID. So, is this over? I don't think it is. But the Delta of Delta is turning down in the way that Dr. Gottlieb talked about, and I hope would be correct. But again, I don't have a great degree of confidence in it even now, but I hope it's correct. Meanwhile, the global semiconductor crunch could worsen. The Delta variant is ravaging the key production areas like Malaysia, and I think that matters. That biggest port that was closed is open. There's been container ship movement seen at that port terminal. The largest U.S. food distributor is having trouble keeping grocery stores stocked, and there's price shock coming. We're talking about Cisco, not systems, but the food company. And you've got all kinds of things that are going on. Speaking of Asia, you even have 6 California companies convicted for a scheme to avoid $1.8 billion in customs duties on Chinese imports by disguising aluminum imports as pallets, which they were not. It's the kind of thing that goes on. Some say it is incompetence on a colossal scale throughout our society. I certainly hope not. I think there's a degree of competence in the Beltway, but that's not really news, no matter what party is in power, is it? And I'm not sure it's actually what it seems to be on the surface, especially as regards Afghanistan. I don't see how it can be, since the president, in his 6-minute news conference, where he took no questions, mumbled at least half a dozen times that we stand arm in arm with our allies, we support our allies, we won't desert our friends, and so on. And yet he gave the order to do that, but with contingencies. Suspects something that I mentioned the other day, and that is it would be very clever to say we're going to get out by the 31st. Don't plan to do that. And then, surprise, surprise, we're still there, but at least we can get out in an orderly manner. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen, because reports say that there's already some troop withdrawals that are going on a selected basis. So, again, it's that kind of a situation. But I will tell you this, whatever criticism the White House is receiving, including from me, would pale in comparison to the criticism if troops or others were injured in an attack on Kabul airport. And obviously, that's one of the biggest reasons the Pentagon recommended that the withdrawal be completed by August 31. But the president has made commitments. And it looks like the drawdown order has already been initiated. The officials said they would need several days to get the 6,000 U.S. soldiers out of Kabul, who themselves are busy overseeing the evacuation operations. So they have to withdraw concurrently with the refugees and the evacuees, I guess. So what you had this afternoon, according to Richard Engel, which is NBC News, a very good foreign correspondent. He's been in very life-risking situations too often. He should stay in the U.S. for a while. Of course, that's not always safe, but he should. The U.S. Embassy, which of course is at the airport there now, has issued the last alert for U.S. citizens to leave Afghanistan or they're on their own. But they recalled that 30 minutes ago and said, oh, we really didn't mean that. Well, what does that mean? And that's why I say when the president talks about contingencies, there's more to the story. But how much more there is, we really don't know. We do know that the president sort of blindsided the G7 guys that he said he would be behind in the basically Zoom meeting that they had. And you know how that is. The president's approval has dropped to 41%. How does he restore that? He restores that by getting the Americans out, getting our soldiers out, basically unharmed, and then if that's what it takes, give the Taliban their money that the New York Fed is holding. I don't know. I do know the House has approved a resolution allowing $3.5 trillion call it a social spending if you want, a bill to advance, call it what you will. Home prices hit new record highs. Are we heading towards a real estate collapse? Not yet, but eventually. But we're heading towards something like that in coastal areas which are flood prone, and perhaps earthquake areas or fire areas out west. That's hard to say. The whole thing is an earthquake area, you might think, but not really. I know when I used to live in on Sunset in Doheny, some of you know where that is, and had a small penthouse in a high-rise, and people say, oh my God, that's dangerous. Maybe the building would be, but not the location, because the Hollywood Hills are actually on granite, on solid ground. You're more at risk at Santa Monica or Venice Beach, or Huntington Beach or Newport Beach on the beach area, because it's sandy and it can have the rolling motions, where in the hills you just get one hit and usually that's it. So we'll see. But in any event, this is a strange time of fury and disgust about Afghanistan, and of two House members who made an unauthorized trip to Kabul. That's something else that happened, and one was a Democrat, one was a Republican. That was not approved. It was a distraction. Some of these things are just hard to understand. But so we will see. We will see. And what does China have to say in all of this? Not much. But maybe the important comments of they're eyeing the minerals, including the lithium that's in Afghanistan, more than they want to bet on the Taliban. I'm sure of that. Kamala Harris is really the story we should be talking about. The media will touch on it, but the stories are differing on all the networks, as best I can tell. She met with officials in Singapore to kick off her Southeast Asia visit, and she either was attacked by a microwave beam, like happened in Havana and elsewhere, to some of our diplomats there, or at the embassy in Hanoi, of all places, because that's where she went next. And it's reported as both locations depending on the network, and one network reports it as they wanted the embassy to be safe because something like that happened before they would let her in, which would imply it didn't affect her at all. But the whole thing sounds like a spin, and it probably means that she was affected. I pray not, but I suspect so. Harris said that China has used coercion and intimidation in the South China Sea. She stated their actions continue to undermine the rules-based order and threaten the sovereignty of nations. That's a quote from Agency France Presse. And in Singapore, she noted that the U.S. will pursue a free and open Indo-Pacific. Good. That's exactly what she should say, as a matter of fact. I just hope that her health was not harmed by whatever's going on. Ask China about it, perhaps. In any event, here's the market, another high. It faded late in the day ahead of the Jackson Hole virtual meetings, and we'll see how it digests those. It doesn't want to give up, obviously. Tina is still the game until it isn't, meaning there is no alternative. And that's all about the Fed and the low rates. And the Fed has got us into this, which we're thankful for. And that's how I was able to call the bottom to the day, because the day before, the Fed made a comment about that, and the media ignored it. I didn't ignore it. And now, that was last year. And now you have the Fed afraid to really make the comments they need to about tapering. But they will. And maybe tomorrow. The industrial's up 30 points today. Transport's up 32. The New York Composite up 92, 2-1, advancing over declining issues, 2,200 to 1,000, basically. The VIX finishing up a hair at 17.30 or so. The Russell up 22. Here's your S&P futures this evening, down 1 point. You've got the 10-year yield up 0.03 and the same movement for the 30-year yield as well. Dollar index up 0.10 at 93.01. It's still pretty high, but I think 93, 94 is high enough for now. Bank stock index, I'm not bearish on the dollar. We call the dip, we call the rally, and I think it will probably hold in here for now, the range. The bank stock index up about 1.5, and Bitcoin down 500 on the futures, down 1,000 during regular trading. NASDAQ up 77, NDX up 44, and semiconductor index up 380 as they continue to crowd into what works for them. The hedge funds have underperformed the market because they missed last year. That's one reason why I allowed for the extension of the market, because I thought they were trying to play catch up and worried about their performance comparison reviews. The oil index up 16 today, and crude oil this evening down 18 cents, but it was up again nicely during the day. Incredible rebound in crude oil itself, which has obviously taken out the declining tops. But I think the 60s to 70s is enough, barring an international geopolitical problem. GLD down 0.08 and silver up 20 cents. Now let's take a gander at the individual stocks that we generally keep an eye on. Amgen down 126. I do not know if Amgen might be a licensee of Sorrento for something in the future, but I'm thinking in terms of the Soft USA, the needle patch kind of administration of drugs. But some think it might be Amgen to be the first one. Apple, it won't be exclusive. Apple down 9 cents, and that's a big potential moneymaker for Sorrento, by the way. Apple down 9 cents today. Ameren down a penny. Amazon up almost $40. Boeing up about $2. I'll do these approximates. Advanced Micro AMD gave back a point, but generally is firm. Chevron up a point, a dollar. We used to say a point and eighths, now it's no more fractions. Cellularity up 72 cents. Ceragon up 16 cents. Delta Airlines up 132. Disney 81 cents ahead. Facebook $2.16 ahead. Ford up 35 cents, and it reports increasing orders for the F-150, which is aluminum, and that was very smart because the Lightning version and the EV version fits well with the lighter body and frame construction of being aluminum of the F-150. And they did that years back. They didn't try to do it all at the same time, which really was quite brilliant if that was the plan. Google up $26 today. General Motors rebounding $139. Heat Biologics up 2 cents. IBM 22 cents. Intel 58 cents higher. Little Lightpath up 8 cents at 209. So finally a close above 2, and it's holding it. It's sort of interesting. I don't know that anyone will do it because I don't think there's a catalyst out there. Maybe there is, but look at this declining tops. And this is such an undervalued company based on what they can do, not necessarily what they have done in terms of results, meaning earnings. And here you see the soup bowl on the bottom. You can have a breakout if it moves above 225, 230, if it can do that. And with Lightpath, my view of this is why I just leave it alone. It's speculative, but it's low risk at this price level, and it could double or more if they do things right. And therefore, I'd say it's like holding a long-term option. It doesn't expire, and there it is. Luminar up 68 cents, as long as one has patience and know where better they need the money for. Microsoft down 203. Moderna down $17. Netflix up 8 cents. Nvidia down 165. Palantir up 28 cents. Here's Sorrento up 17 cents at 9.10. That may not look like a lot, but technically it's significant. Lows above lows above lows, taking out this trend, breakout. Consolidate, hold. Now we're going to break out again. 950, 960 would confirm it. It probably will get resisted by bears, but if it gets through that at 980 to 1020 would be your next measure, and it would be logical. And it's just a feeling, and we've had it, that there are so many things they're doing, and that makes sense, and the focus is there. And I write about it in the daily tonight extensively, so I need not here. It is up another 5 cents, by the way, in evening trading. It is, I'm just looking at it. Last trade was at 9.15, but it's 9.10, 9.12 is the spread at the moment, or at the end when they close down. But in any event, I can see the stock up here easily, and if they get an EUA for the test, or they report even sales in Mexico where they have an EUA, that would be interesting. It'll probably run up into the low to mid-teens. If they get top-line data breakout from the UK or Brazil, and it's very successful, if it is, then it really goes up. What's the risk? Well, that's why it's a speculative stock. Telephone, down 7 cents today. Tesla up $2. And finally, Texas Instruments down 3 cents, essentially unchanged. Have a good night. Join us tomorrow.